welcome to the 100 Acre Wool Knitting Podcast. My name is Bella and I'm a knitter, spinner, knitwear designer, and lover of all things fiber arts. And this is a podcast where I like to share with you what I'm working on. So that's usually having to do with knitting or new patterns that I'm designing or spinning or things like that. Sewing sometimes as well. But today is going to be all about knitting, some new designs that I have in the works, and a lot of spinning that I've been doing in the past couple of weeks. So if that interests you, settle down, grab a project, maybe get some tea, and let's get started. So first, a couple of new things that have happened since we last spoke here on the podcast. I wanted to inform you that we have our first pattern of the year is now published. So those would be the Triga mittens. So this is what they look like. They are just really sweet, cute little mittens, really quick to knit up and quite simple. I wouldn't say this is a beginner-friendly pattern, but I would definitely say an intermediate knitter could do this. There are a few kind of newer techniques that are in this pattern, very similar to my Fields of Gold sweater as well, that includes the same wheatgrass motif. There are a few changes between the two, but generally it's the same kind of a design. But yes, I have video tutorials throughout the pattern, so if you are adventurous and you would like to learn some new techniques, I would definitely recommend this. It is in a smaller scale, so you don't have to take on an entire sweater, but you can still learn some new fun techniques. And it's definitely the time of wear to be, or time of wear. It's definitely the time of year to be wearing these. I have been getting so much use out of my sample here. I like to go on walks every day and it's very cold where I am, at least in my opinion. I moved to Northern California a few months ago and I'm used to LA weather, Southern California weather, which is pretty much like 70s or higher all of the time. So anything below 70, I'm like, it's cold. Call me crazy. Anyway, I like to be warm, like all the time, so these mittens have been really coming in handy. If you would like to hear more information about them, I will direct you to my previous podcast episodes where I talk about them more, and I will also have the pattern linked down below if you would like to check it out. So those are out in the world now on Ravelry and on my Etsy page as well. And another something new, I have decided to create a Ko-Fi or Ko-fi account. I'm not exactly sure how you say that, but I've created a Ko-fi account. I really enjoy making these podcasts for you all, and I really put a lot of effort and work into trying to make it entertaining and informative. Hopefully you get some inspiration, but also learn some new knitting techniques or just ways of thinking about your knitting, construction ideas, color ideas, just all those types of goodness. And I also realized that a lot of viewers here are not knitters. They're also crocheters or sewists or other fiber people of some sort. So they wouldn't be able to support through purchasing my patterns. But I wanted to create a space that if you wanted to support or you contribute, then I would be greatly appreciative of it. So if you would like to do so, I have linked that down below. Yeah, you could buy me a coffee. Anyways, so those are some announcements that have happened. So I guess now we will get into finished objects. So my first finished object is a sweater. I have finally finished my Inspired by Cowl sweater. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen this already. I've already been getting so much use out of this. I cast it off about a week ago and then I finally got around to blocking it. Anyways, this is my Inspired by Cowl sweater and it is so cozy and warm. So this sweater, Inspired by Cowl. If you don't know what that cowl is, it was a knit-along, it's already over now, but it was a knit-along happening that a few fellow podcasters here on YouTube had started, and it was really based off of this motif here. So this really beautiful sort of, I call it a peacock feather motif. This was present in a knitting pattern that was from a Swedish knitting book. I'm not sure what it's called, what the exact pattern was or what it was called, but anyways, one of the makers behind New to Den Yarn, Ellen, she had knit that sweater and everyone just fell in love with the colorwork motif. So the cowl was kind of around exploring your creativity and seeing what you would want to make with that sort of colorwork motif. So this is one of the things that I made. I also had made a pair of socks a few months ago, but I just really loved the colorwork motif. I just thought it was so beautiful, so decided to make a whole sweater with it. And this was just such a fun knit. It was really, I would definitely recommend, even though the cowl is over, I would definitely recommend if you're new to colorwork or you kind of want to dip your hands into it, I would definitely recommend this motif because I think it's really beautiful and interesting. Gives some nice interest to your main fabric without it being complicated whatsoever. The main part of it, most of it, is just this part, not the actual little not the actual little feather bit at the bottom. So this part of the motif is only a 4-row repeat, and there's like no more than 3 stitches between color changes. So as you're knitting it, as you're doing that color work, it's really easy to keep your attention, or maybe not really easy. It's easier to keep your tension, keep your tension well, and I don't know, it's just really easy to memorize, so you don't have to keep looking at a colorwork chart. So it was just really enjoyable knit, and I didn't feel like I was knitting colorwork because usually colorwork you would have to keep looking at a chart. So yeah, it just made it much more fun of a process. So this sweater was entirely self-drafted, I guess. I didn't actually draft a pattern, so I'm sorry if you love this. I will not be making a pattern for it just because this colorwork motif is not mine, so I wouldn't feel comfortable selling a pattern with that. But I will be making notes in my Ravelry project page about all the things that I did. I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible for what exactly I did, because again, I didn't write down exactly everything that I did. Not to the extent of like the detail that an actual knitting pattern would be. But anyways, this was entirely self-designed, I guess you would say. So I worked it bottom up. Well, first I guess we'll talk about the yarn. So the yarn is Newton yarn held double. So I used 2 colors, if you couldn't tell. 2 colors. One was Wagenham and Inest. Inest was the light blue color, and Wagenham the gray. So each of those I held double. So it's essentially like an Aran weight yarn if you're trying to compare it to a spun yarn. And I would also say that for the entire sweater, I haven't actually weighed the sweater, but just looking at how much yarn I have left over, I think I only used like 400 grams. So maybe like 2 plates of each, or I think I used a bit more of the blue. But anyways, Newton just goes really far, I find. So I had cast on the sweater at the bottom, at the hem, and I did a different hem than I have done in previous projects before. So I did an I-cord edging. So I just knit an I-cord 3 stitches wide, just a really long cord, kind of like a crochet chain, but it's not crochet, it's an I-cord. So I knit that to be the circumference of the body. And then I went along that I-cord and I picked up every V row in order to start the body. So then the I-cord was horizontal, and I did 2 rows of moss stitch, or not moss stitch, seed stitch. So I just did knit purl all the way around and then offset it for the next round. So then you get these cute little textures there at the bottom. And then I just did the colorwork motif as in the pattern, and I did not use the Swedish version of the pattern. There's another Fecal Lana pattern that uses pretty much the same colorwork motif. So I will have that link down below and also in my Ravelry project page if you want to know where the actual chart is for this motif here. So yeah, I did that in the round, worked up until the underarm here. Did the same exact thing for the sleeves, just a smaller circumference. And for the sleeves, I did do increases because I wanted this sweater to be quite fitted, not super, super tight, because this yarn is quite rustic, and I didn't want it to be so tight that it would be itching me nonstop all the time. So it's fitted without being like skin tight. But anyways, for the sleeves, I started with 3 repeats at the cuff, 3 repeats of the little motif. And then I steadily increased so that the underarm would have 4 repeats. So I just kind of calculated how long of an arm sleeve. I do that all the time, sorry. I kind of calculated how long of a sleeve I would need and then evenly divided that to how many stitches I was going to be increasing. So anytime I would increase, I did 1 stitch on either side. So it would be 1 row with 2 increases in it. So I kind of did 6 rows of increases. So I just divided like how long of a sleeve I needed by 6. And then I knew every, like, I think it was like 2 1/4 inches, I needed to increase the 2 stitches because the chart repeat is 12 stitches. And anyways, I think you're getting my drift. So yeah, it was 4 repeats at the top there of the sleeve. And then I did decreases, decreases going up the yoke. And, oh, I did do a couple of decreases in the underarm just to get the pattern, just to get the patterning to match up. Hopefully you can see that there. Because when I had joined in the sleeves, the patterning didn't quite match up yet. So yeah, so hopefully you can see that there. The colorwork motif wasn't quite matching yet, so I just decreased on the sleeves and on the body both together evenly until they matched up. And then I changed the colorwork motif so that it didn't have the lines in between. I just did the vertical lines going up, and then I just evenly decreased. I think I went from like 4 to 3 stitches in every single section. So like, hopefully you can see, in this part I had 4 stitches, and then in every single section I just went down to have 3 stitches by up here. And then I decided to repeat the little feathery bit at the top again for the, what is this called? For the neckband or the neckline. Yeah, so again, just evenly decreased around there as well. I was just looking at the colorwork chart and was kind of making like a triangle with my decreases. So I wasn't too particular about this. There's a few points in this sweater that it doesn't look perfect, or rather like the decreases are kind of in different colors, and I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal, so I figured no one would really notice it except for me, so I just went with it because I'm not making a pattern out of this, so I didn't feel like I had to be absolutely perfect about every single detail. Oh my goodness, this is so cozy and warm. I would seriously recommend, even if you don't want to do this colorwork motif in particular, I would really recommend doing a Aran weight or knitted and yarn held double with 2 colors thing. This is officially the coziest, warmest sweater I own. Like, oh my gosh. I was walking, I've already been wearing this like nonstop, and I was walking and it was super, super windy and I just couldn't feel anything. Like everywhere that the sweater was touching my skin, it was like non-permeable. It was so nice. And it's just like so fluffy and squishy. Like the fabric itself is just very, very dense. Not dense, but it's lovely. So if you have some knitted and yarn, try this out. Would definitely recommend. So yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this one. And again, I will try to put all of the details about how I did this in the description below and on my RAVELRY page, which will be linked down below. Oh, and I forgot to say, I also did short rows. So I did my short rows right before this kind of line, this gray line on the back. So if you're not aware of why do we do short rows are particularly important with yoke sweaters, I think, in my opinion, because you want to raise the back a little bit more than the front. If you look at your body, then you'll notice that the back kind of is longer, or you have more space in the back rather than the front. The front is much more flat here, and the back, the fabric would have to reach more to cover. So short rows you want to put in just so that the neckline is higher in the back and lower in the front, so that it's not like this. If you didn't do short rows, then your sweater would most likely kind of be choking you. So I definitely made sure to add in some short rows. And I made my short rows go up to about here, I think. Like the furthest from the back edge, I think they were like this. And my beginning of round was like the center back, so hopefully that makes sense to you. So you can see this like vertical line bit is longer in the back than the front. So that's where I put my short rows. Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say about this one, and I'm gonna keep this on because it's really toasty warm and it's kind of cold in here. So let's move on to the next project. Okay, so some spinning finished pieces, some finished spins. I finished some more of, or rather the rest of the green for my partner's sweater that I'm going to be knitting for him. So here it is. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy with how it came out. So I spun this to be a DK weight yarn. This is some fiber from Acre again. And actually, I think they are having a shop update. When you see this, I think it'll be today. This is going out on Friday, so I'm pretty sure you can get your hands on this fiber if you are a spinner and you would like to try it out. I think they still have some more of this in the shop. So yeah, this one is a 2-ply DK weight is what I spun it to. And for those who are curious, I spin on an Ashford traditional wheel that was gifted to me by a very lovely friend. And yeah, so everything I spin is on a traditional wheel. Yeah, just really loved that spin, and I really love how rusticy the wool comes out, the fiber, the yarn. It's just so beautiful, and just all the little colors throughout are just so much fun, little pops of color. So those yarns are going to be going into a sweater for my partner. I'm going to be knitting him the Unbearable Sweater by Les Garçons. I'm so excited about that. I just have one more color to finish spinning, and then I can finally continue knitting. I've already started on like the little bit of the neckband, but have a lot of color work to do up there. So that will be coming soon. Probably in next episode I will have those colors done and you will be able to see it. And then another finished spin. I purchased this yarn. I purchased this fiber. It was delivered and I spun the entire thing since last time. So within a couple of weeks. I was just so obsessed. So this is my newest hand-dyed fiber handspun. Focus. Is it gonna focus? Maybe. There we go. Oh my goodness. I am just so happy with how this came out. This is probably my favorite handspun to date. I just really love the look of when you used hand-dyed fiber to spin. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And this fiber was truly 100% my favorite fiber ever to spin with. It just glided so well when you're drafting the yarn. I do a woolen spun. I'm actually not sure what it's called, but I will insert some video here so that you can see me drafting the fiber and tell me what kind of fiber drafting type I do, because it's not a long draw. I think it's a short forward draw, I think is what it's called. Still relatively new to spinning. I just started last year, so I don't know all of the terminology yet, but yes, this was just so lovely to draft and spin. It was just gliding. There was no sort of felting, or I didn't have to tug on it a lot. I find sometimes you have to tug on the fiber a lot because maybe it's kind of very densely packed together. I didn't have any of that. It was just a breeze. It was truly a breeze, and it went by so quickly, which is a good thing and a bad thing because I didn't want it to stop. I didn't want it to end. It was just like so soft and lovely and wonderful. So I'm really happy that I got another, I got 2 braids of this color because I just knew when I saw it on the Wool Fiend Etsy page. I was like, this is the most gorgeous color ever. Let me, you know what? Pardon the crinkle. I'm going to take it out of the plastic so you can see the color better. Okay, here we go. So this is what the fiber kind of looked like before. And then just wow, I love this colorway so much. So the purpose of this skein, it is going to be going into a new cast on very, very soon for a new design that I have already in the works. This is actually going to be part of, or for my second sample of the design, and it's going to be gifted to a friend once I'm finished with it. So I'm just so excited. She picked out this fiber and I just love it so much. So that is a very exciting project coming up soon that I can't wait to cast on. And okay, now let's get into works in progress. So speaking of that skein of yarn, this is the new design, aforementioned new design, that I will be making a second sample of. But here is my sample, and I'm so excited with how it's coming out. So this is a new cowl design. It is all over mosaic knitting, and I am just totally in love with how it's coming out. There's some really fun little textures and wraps, and I just really love how it's coming out. So that's kind of where it's going to lay on the body. And I'm continuing to knit it across, and then it will be seamed in the back. And it's just so comfortable and cozy, but still lightweight. I am using, for this sample, I'm using 2 colors of Knitted yarn, each held single, so it's a fingering weight yarn. Thus the reason that I'm making another version. So the other version is going to be that beautiful handspun that I just showed you, and another colorway that is going to be another type of spun yarn, fingering weight spun yarn. But for this sample, it is Knitted yarn, and I just love the little details at the bottom. So we have some really cute little I-cord textures going on, and then also at the top here, hopefully you can see that, that's also going to be an I-cord. So this is just, at this point, it's really just a fun knit. I cast on down here, and I've been working up this way. So now I'm just working on the main portion of the fabric here, which is just TV knitting. It's just so much fun. So, and I'm really happy with how quickly it's coming along. So yeah, very excited about that project. And this pattern, if you would like to be a test knitter, I will be doing a test knit call before the next podcast episode. So if you would like to be a test knitter, I would recommend you sign up for my newsletter, since that is now the only way to be a test knitter. Or rather, to sign up to be a test knitter. So I will be sending that out in about a week or two to call for test knitters for this pattern. So there we go, and I will also be kind of test knitting with you throughout the test knitting process, working on the second sample of this garment. So yeah, it just, oh my gosh. This is, I think, one of the first projects that I have held Knitted single for, and I really love the fabric that's coming out. This hasn't been blocked yet. I've just lightly steamed it really quick. This hasn't been blocked yet, but I can just tell it's going to be a beautiful fabric once it's finished. So really excited about that one. And another work in progress. So a couple of days ago, my partner was telling me, he was like, hey, you know, every time I go to work in the morning, my hands are freezing, and he doesn't like to turn on the heating in the car, so he's driving to work with frozen hands. And I told him, I was like, you know what, I can knit you mittens. He's so silly sometimes. But anyway, so he was like, yeah, let's do that. So he picked out some yarn from my stash, and I have started knitting some mittens for him. So the first one is finished, and this is what it looks like. So this little detail here, this is supposed to be a sword. Tell me if you think it looks like a sword or not. I did my best. So he really loves swords and shields and kind of medieval aesthetic. So he wanted one mitten to have a sword on it and then the other one to be a shield. And he wanted specifically the right mitten to have the sword, because that's where he would carry the sword, right? And then the left hand would be the shield. He's so cute and nerdy. Anyway, so yes, this right mitten is finished and that has the little sword. So this is not a pattern again. Let me know if you would like a pattern for this. I would be happy to, pull together a little free knitting pattern, free mitten knitting pattern, just a really simple stockinette knitting pattern. Yeah, happy to do that. But yeah, so this one was a very quick knit, too big for me, but it's generally worked from the top down. You do the thumb separately and then join in later, and there you go. So that was a really fun, really quick little knit. This particular one I used Mittens yarn held double, and it is the colorway Botanica. I think that's how you say it. It's a really, really beautiful green. Mittens yarn again, just with so many other pops of other colors throughout it. So yeah, a really fun little quick knitting project, and I will have those finished for him in a few days. Let's see what else. Another work in progress. This sweater that I shared with you all last time, I have gotten a little bit of work done on it, but I stopped because I spoke to the recipient and he actually wants it to be different. So anyways, what am I talking about? So I'm knitting this sweater for a friend. He really wanted a sweater kind of inspired by one of the sweaters that was shown in the movie Knives Out, and it looks, as far as the fabric goes, it looks very similar to this. So it's mostly blue and then with some red and white throughout. So I'm using 3 different yarns for this and holding them together to create this marled fabric. So someone had mentioned in the last podcast in the comments that they thought that the pattern was actually half fisherman's rib rather than the 1x1 ribbing that I had been doing before. So I decided to try that out, but I honestly don't really like how the fabric is coming out. I don't know if it's something about the bulkiness of the yarn that I'm using, since I'm holding 4 strands together. But something about it, I just don't really like it. And then I asked my friend who's going to be the recipient of this, and I don't know. I think we're just going to go back to the 1x1 ribbing at the bottom that you can see here at the bottom, which I like anyway, and it's easier to remember the stitch repeat. So that's how that project is going to be coming along. So I'm just going to rip out the half fisherman's rib, and maybe that will be in another project sometime. But yeah, so that's how that one is coming along. And thank you so much to those of you who reached out to me when I asked last podcast if you had any extra Nina, any extra of the blue Onarok Air yarn that I'm using for that sweater. So thank you so much. Quite a few of you reached out to me that we could do a yarn exchange or purchase it from you. And I think now I will definitely have enough of the color to finish the sweater. So thank you so much again. And one of the knitters who was so kind to gift me some of her Nina, she also sent me a little package with some other yarns and goodies. And this I just had to share with you. This is a beautiful necklace that she had made herself. Angela, thank you so much again for this. It was just such a lovely surprise. So this necklace, here, let me show it to you up close. She hand makes these necklaces, and she has an Etsy shop. I will link it down below. But oh my gosh, how beautiful. She hand does all the wiring, all the wire work. And I used to make jewelry, and I know how difficult this is to make it actually look very professional and beautiful and perfect. So I was just totally blown away. So Angela has an Etsy shop, Ethereal Arts, and I will link to it down below if you would like to check out her work. Just absolutely beautiful craftsmanship. Really love it. So thank you so much again, Angela. And with that, let's get into the next project. I also have another spinning project in the works. So this is some more hand spun that's going to be going into my partner's unbearable sweater. So this is the last little bit that I have to finish up. And this is one of the plies of this beautiful Acre fiber that I'm spinning up. It's going to be a 2-ply, so this is the rest of it that I have to ply, or spin and then ply together. So yeah, this spinning project is almost done and I'm so excited. This fiber, the yarn, I really, really love how it turns out. The fiber honestly is not my favorite to actually spin, just because it's very, very grabby, and I'm more used to spinning from like cone tops where it's very, very smooth to draft. Since I do a short forward draft, it's more sticky, like the fiber wants to stick to itself more, I guess, is what's happening. And I don't know, I have to tug a little bit harder, and sometimes in some places it's like wanting to be thicker or thinner, and I just haven't found the best way to work with it yet, but I really love the yarn that comes out of it in the end. So I'm just so excited to see how this yarn comes out and start working with it. So yeah, really beautiful, beautiful Acre fiber. It is really, really beautiful. I will say though, it's probably something to do with the certain fibers that are in whatever colorway you're working with, because I will say, since the different colorways of their fiber, they have different wool contents, different breeds of wool are thrown in throughout, so kind of every color is different. So some colors may be easier to work with than others is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that spinning project will be done very soon, and I can't wait to cast on that sweater for him. And with that, that is everything I had to share with you today. So thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And I will see you in the next podcast. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week and have fun knitting or spinning or whatever craft brings you joy. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.